Hi, and welcome back to What Do You Think? I'm your host, Valary Smart, and I have my special guest joining me via Skype. We're doing Skype today, so that's exciting. Uh, Edward Escobar, we were talking about the Alliance for Independent Workers. He's developed that, thegigsup.org, and hashtag Drivers Unite. Edward, thank you so much for joining me and talking about this issue. Again, this is part two on What Do You Think, airing on vibrationstudios.com. And Edward, the question I asked is Uber and Lyft, this whole situation taking over the transportation industry? How do you feel about that?
Well, it's beyond just transportation. You're talking about the gig economy workforce and the whole sharing economy,
Mm-hmm.
which, a lot of folks have started calling it the uncaring economy
Wow.
because they're sure as heck not sharing the wealth
Nope.
because it's all being redistributed upwards. So that's the downside of it. Because if you look at the gig economy and the whole sharing economy concept, it can work effectively to really benefit the people, the general population. However, when corporate greed comes in and takes over, it's just a downward spiral. Wait, it's a nosedive. That's how bad it's gotten within the past few years. So, and they've been able to get so much traction as a multinational corporation that they are now, both Uber and Lyft,
Yep.
and they're multi-billion dollars or multi-billion dollar multinational corporations. So they have power, influence, money. They have all of that and more.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're able to influence legislation. They're able to have their own legislation basically put in place, cookie cutter style. I believe 43 out of the 50 states on a statewide level have had legislation introduced by Uber and Lyft lobbyists. They spend more on lobbying than was it Google, Apple, Walmart combined. It's a huge amount of money, and that's how they're able to get what they want to get done,
That's
and they
sickening.
do it very well. Yeah,
That's sickening. I also feel that we can combat that in a way if the drivers did unite. Hashtag Drivers
drivers unite.
Unite. I
Exactly.
was sitting there last night going through some of your old clips I found on YouTube and the various protesting that you've done for several years now. And there's one common theme that sticks out for me when I'm watching your clips and hearing what you're speaking about, which is drivers uniting. If we were to unite and take a stance, then we might be able to see some changes. But I've also experienced drivers not wanting to unite and not wanting to even give up 5 minutes to protest. I remember asking this guy,
Right.
hey, can you just give us 5 minutes of your time? And he said, no, I'm homeless. I sleep in my car. I said, well, dude, how much are you going to make just going down the street? You can't just give us 5 minutes. He wouldn't give it up.
Right.
So
Yeah.
go ahead.
The 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 real deal is that organizing and standing up for workers' rights is not for everyone. That's just the bottom line. As they say, many are called, but few are chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And so we look for, the needles in the haystack. We look for the diamonds in the rough. We look for folks that have a passionate desire that no matter what it is, they want to do something. They want to be a part of something for change. Those are the types of folks that have the strength and courage to make a difference. Those are the ones that we want. Those are the people that we want to collaborate. The other folks are the ones that'll stand around and they'll wait to get the benefits. Oh, yeah, they'll be there first in line to get the benefits, but they don't want to contribute to change. So I say to people, either be part of the problem or part of the solution. It's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not here to persuade or convince anyone.
Mm-hmm.
We're just sharing information, and hopefully common sense will kicks in. But as they say about common sense, the problem with it is it's not too common. And
Right.
that's what we experience.
Right.
Because with the driver's industry, as you drop the prices significantly, you also drop the caliber of people that you attract. And
Absolutely.
so it's to be expected,
Mhm.
and some of them are desperate. That's why you have Uber and Lyft, like corporations, that they are trying to target for recruitment these the soft targets, which are the immigrants, the low income, the minorities, the seniors, the disabled, single moms, the veterans, the students. A lot of these folks, they're marginalized, and these folks are taken advantage by these corporations, and you see the results
Yeah.
because they know that by using and abusing them, these folks do not unite their voices because they feel intimidated by these corporations. Instead, they want to stay quiet, don't say anything, just go keep working, fly under the radar. And
Right.
in some ways, part of it's cultural because like some folks that are drivers, like they're Mexican, they come from Mexico.
Hmm.
They know that if they stand up in certain places, they could be disappeared. In
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
places the governments retaliate. So culturally speaking, in some cases I understand some people, by nature, by exposure in their own culture, they think it's best to just not say anything, and maybe it'll improve. But as we know, all we've seen is the decline.
And maybe they don't
It's
care
not
about it
improving.
improving. They probably don't care that it improves because they're just so happy to have a job in the US and make money. To some
Right.
people, the money that they're making is a lot of money.
Right, but you know what? Relatively speaking, whenever they start, maybe to them it's good, but then shortly thereafter, they start to see how it declines. And so I say to drivers, so you're okay with it right now?
Hmm.
Yeah, they say, yeah, yeah, I'm okay. Okay, well, how about when it gets worse? Because it did for us, and it will for you. So are you okay with that? Are you really against making more money? It's like, well, you
Seems
have a
like they don't
point.
care.
It's like, no, we have a point. Together, we need to do this.
Hmm.
Don't expect people like me and like other folks on our teams, nationally and internationally, to do your job. If you're truly an independent contractor like you think you are, then a self employed independent contractor takes care of business. So take
That's
care of
cool.
business and know your rights.
And look,
And
and
if you
and
don't,
Edward, we're looking. The clips are showing right now of the people that were standing beside you protesting in San Francisco here recently, and I see minorities,
yeah,
and I don't even like that word, by the way. So ethnic
yeah,
folks. I see a lot of ethnic folks,
yes,
just like you
yes,
mentioned. What is this about? Where are I don't see diversity in this. In the drivers that are present. It's
right.
just like you
It
said,
really speaks.
immigrants, Hispanics, blacks. I don't see
Right.
whites.
Yeah, just a small smattering. I bet also realize too, you have to qualify it because it is San Francisco. We're pretty much a melting pot here.
Right.
So, but all in all, yes, you're right because it appeals mostly to immigrants and people that just came to the country. A lot of ethnicity, diversity there, because that's been the easier jobs that they have access to. So do you understand that that gives the corporations then a greater opportunity to use and abuse the rights of workers because they bring in folks that don't know any better and they undermine the existing rank and file of drivers that are there. That's why the newbie folks, the new drivers come in, they know not what they are doing and they're undermining
They
their
know
fellow
not what they
drivers.
do. Michael, do you have a question? Because I know you wanted to chime in on this conversation.
Yeah, this is Michael from Vibration Frequency. I basically loved the discussion last week. And one of the things that caught my attention was that Uber and Lyft appear to be apps that distract our society from our homelessness. As the rent rises in California and gets like 500% of what you monthly bring home, it's become very difficult to have affordable housing. And so a lot of people are in that intermediate condition where they're not truly homeless yet, but they don't have their own place. And Uber gives you that hope that you can get yourself out of your rut, and you can tighten up your bootstraps, and then you can kind of get things going. But in my opinion, it's the opposite from what I'm hearing, how it basically conditions people to accept the homelessness that's inevitable to them.
Yeah, the rideshare industry has created a new category of homeless. It's the new homeless category in San Francisco and in many other major cities. Folks are just living in their cars now.
Yeah.
And that leads to workers' exhaustion, which is worse than driving drunk. And you know damn well that you cannot get restful sleep in your car.
You cannot.
You just can't.
You can't. No. Go ahead, Edward. I'm
So
sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
So that's causing significant damage to the physicality of these folks. That impacts their DNA. That shortens their life, is what it does. And it starts to open up the doors for a host of many other mental, emotional, and health problems. So these are, what would you say, gateways? I guess that would be a good term for that. It's a gateway to a host of ailments and problems and maladies that will fall upon these poor victimized drivers. And you have some drivers that, they really buy into this dog eat dog, every man for himself, this whole roar, I'm American. And, I think that we should all, do what we do. And if you can't hang, get another job. Okay. Would you say that to the coal miners? Would you say that to a woman who was raped or sexually assaulted or abused at work? Hey, your boss mistreated you. Just take it on the chin and keep going back for more.
Right.
No, you would do that, especially in the age of Me Too. Hell no, would you do that?
Right.
There's no way.
Absolutely.
So why
not.
is it acceptable? Why is it acceptable for riders to say that to drivers? Worse, why is it acceptable for a driver to say that to a fellow driver? How dare you? How dare you?
The disrespect is real. Where are the drivers sleeping? Besides, so they're sleeping in their car, but then where are they parked? Are they at a supermarket? Is it lawful for them to be there? I've heard of some drivers actually getting ticketed for just spending too many hours in a certain area and sleeping. I've heard of drivers getting the police harassing them, knocking on their window with a flashlight, startling them, telling them they have to move. So where is it that they can legally go and sleep peacefully in their car?
Yeah, that's a good question, because they make it near impossible for a driver to do that, and especially if they're a long ways from home and they're living in their car. So in some cities, they're basically proposing legislation or have legislation that's on its way or in effect that is saying that you can't do that. You can't be sleeping in your car. Even in London, our global partners over in the UK, the United Private Hire Drivers, UPHD, and they're supported by the IWGB, Independent Workers of Great Britain. Sorry, that's a mouthful.
Yeah,
but they also are dealing with the same thing over there with these homeless drivers or quasi-homeless. They're just trying to get some rest sometimes before they try to make their way home. They just don't want to drive, under work exhaustion and maybe get in an accident.
Right.
And so these folks are prevented from even doing that in some cases. So yeah, it's really bad and it's getting worse. And that's only one component of the many issues that are problematic within the rideshare industry and the driver app-based industries as well for gig workers.
So Edward, because I know you talk to a lot of public officials and you're trying to put this information in front of them, as well as have put this information in front of them. What are they saying about all of this? How do they feel?
Well, they're shocked and dismayed that, this is happening, but it's like, okay, if you feel that way, do something about it then. It always seems to be someone else's problem. No one wants to get their hands dirty. It's like, what was discussed about homelessness. Homelessness issue in San Francisco is huge.
Yeah.
But I've talked with different politicians. Huge. even if someone comes up with a great idea, what's happening is, they're always going to be criticized. So no one wants to be, taking the hits up front. No one wants to do that and be considered a person who's against homeless because he's trying to make affect change.
Hmm.
And so, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And that's why the politicians in frustration, and they use it as an excuse too to not do their job. They're like, well, I would have, could have, should have, but it's just not viable. I can't get the support. I can't get people to rally around what we're trying to propose. So, basically excuses. But I look at it
Excuses.
this way: if you can't get results, then get the hell out of office. Let someone else come into place that'll take care of business and do the right thing for the public. And
Um,
go ahead.
Edward, while you're speaking, I'm thinking about drivers and, along with the whole sleeping in the car, the tiredness, drivers who may do other things so that they can stay awake, maybe drugs or whatever. And then there comes, it's supposed to eliminate this intoxicated driving factor. But then, in fact, you do have drivers that drive intoxicated off of some sort of substance to stay awake, whether it be Red Bull, which that's an issue. I know another driver, a friend of mine, drank too many Red Bulls and had major health problems. And the reason he drank so many is to stay awake, to be alert while he's on the road. And because he needed to make money, it's neither here nor there. What is he supposed to do? Should he drive and be tired, or should he drink a bunch of Red Bulls and stay awake and affect his health?
Right, and possibly get a heart attack.
Well, yes.
Because
Yes.
I mean, some people are more sensitive to these beverages that are energy beverages than others,
Hmm.
and not everyone's heart is built to handle that.
Right.
So when you become more and more susceptible from a health standpoint, and you add Red Bull to the mix, or not just Red Bull, any high energy drink, okay, then you're asking for trouble.
Hmm.
You're asking for trouble because there's consequences. You want a quick fix instead of getting restful sleep, and you try to fix it with a Band-Aid. You keep doing that, it's going to catch up and bite you in the ass, and
Right.
that's what's happening.
So
That's what's
so
happening to these
so
folks.
with the benefits that the drivers are not getting, so they don't get health insurance, correct?
Right.
So there's no medical insurance, no health insurance, no life insurance, because they're out there driving up and down dangerous jobs. So they don't have that. What else is it that they don't have?
Well, I mean, they don't have anything. They don't have any support. But look, here's the deal. If you got paid a significant amount of money as an independent contractor, which is how it's supposed to work, then you'd be able to cover your own expenses to provide your own health care and so on and so forth. That's why an independent contractor typically makes more than 3 times what an employee would make, because you have to account for downtime, you have to account for overhead and operating expenses,
Hmm.
and the safety net is what we're talking about. There is the safety net, and the safety net is non-existent. So in order to have that, the driver himself has to pay for it. So they got to make a significant amount of money more than a part-time a minimum wage employee to cover those expenses, because they don't have the protections. And so the consequences of behaving badly with your own body and not treating it properly, it catches up with you later. And then they wonder, what the hell happened?
Hmm.
Why am I sick? What did this happen? How did this happen? Well, how
Right.
about the folks that are sitting there at the airport inhaling all these toxic jet fuel fumes
Right.
that are rolling from these planes, and the noise pollution on top of that? And so some of these folks are there for hours and hours on end. So, you could see that there's no warning sign there that says to people, if you're in this lot, you're being exposed to these toxic jet fuel fumes.
Exactly.
Basically, yeah. And so that, a full disclosure. So people these drivers, they know not what they're getting into,
And
but
and
they'll get the results.
And
And the
Edward, when we come back, what I'd like to talk about is some solutions. What do we see as fair? How should we start treating, how should the corporation start treating drivers? What is fair pay? What exactly are we looking at here to make this an even playing field? Again, you are here with me, Valary Smart on What Do You Think, right here on vibrationfrequency.com. Feel the frequency.